Well, good evening, everybody. This is going to be a little conversation about our grief, and so what we're trying to do is just be as open and honest as we can about things that we're experiencing. Um, and I've been working with a lot of people for a lot of time on their grief. Done a lot of had some really good friends. I've been a minister for a long time and worked with a lot of families. And there's a lot of observations that I've had from that, including uh, some very significant experiences in my life as well with people that were important to me that I lost. And so I noticed there's a lot of similarities with grief, and the closer the relationship is, the it seems like the more difficult it is. And so I remember just being in grief moment, losing a wife, and just how lost I was in a lot of this. So over the years, I've been as working with families. I kind of would see the same pain that I had, and so I thought, well, maybe we can kind of confront some of the pain, and just kind of let people know, you know, this is what you can expect uh, to as you go through the grieving process. Because I tell you, that was the most difficult thing I've ever been through in my life. Lost a wife, a girlfriend, not the same time, but a wife, a father, a bonus son, and then a girlfriend. And all four of those were so significant, and they had different effects on me. And so I want to share some of those things with you, but I'm making some observations. And so what I put together was this thing called 10 rules to live by while you grieve. And I generally hand this over to people as they're about to go through the grieving process, maybe at the funeral or just shortly thereafter. And I remember this very significantly, uh, of everything. I had a lengthy illness with my first wife, and I remember very well of when she died. The first response was relief that she was no longer in pain. I knew it was going to be difficult, but from that point on, everything was just so busy right afterward. So had to make all the phone calls, make all the arrangements, get everything in gear. People coming in left and right, filling your house, giving you hugs, and then doing the service, and then the same thing is there. And I remember beginning to think, and I remember this well at this service, that this isn't going to be as bad as I thought it was going to be. I think I feel pretty good about that. I've had a lot of time to process and think through it. And then probably about a day after everybody left, man, it hit me like a lead balloon on top of my head. And it was the worst thing I ever experienced. And I thought there was something wrong with me. I didn't know why it was going to be so difficult. And because once you go through the whole process of taking care of the person and doing the funeral, and everybody leaves. When everybody leaves, they go back to their normal life. And then you're kind of left there trying to figure out, what do I do with all of these voices going on in my head? What do I do with all this pain in my heart? What am I doing? I can't quit crying. And I don't want anybody to see me this way. It's very uncomfortable for them. And so as I was kind of going through this, I thought, what are some good things I would have liked to have known before I started this process of grieving, just so I know that there's nothing wrong with me. Because that's exactly the way I interpreted so many things that I went through. It was like, man, I must be doing something wrong, because this pain is like nothing I've ever felt before in my life. And just waking up at 3 a.m, and that's how you start your day. Just first thought in your brain, last thought at night. And so, and complicate things, or I guess it's either complicate things or inspires you. I had a 2-year-old daughter at the time. And so I always refer back to those experiences, because I was 30 years old at the time, which is like 2-3 years ago, I think, or more. So it was just a lot of stuff. And so I put together 10 rules to live by as you grieve, and I'll share some with you and kind of expand on them. These were things that were very helpful to me, and also been very helpful to others as I pass them out. And then people will come to me and say, can I get those? And what I do is we have these practices or rules. And when I hand them to people, I think you can run these off. I'd say, put this on your mirror, put this on your refrigerator, and always refer back to it, because there'd be so many times you think, I think I'm doing something wrong. Then you'll find one of these 10 things on there and go, okay, I'm not going crazy. Well, you still maybe think you're going crazy, but you know that everybody else has done the same thing that you're absolutely going through, which is helpful as well. So let me do the first one. The first one, the first rule is just expect to grieve. Grief is absolutely normal and necessary after you lose someone. It's just as natural as breathing. So grief, I think sometimes we see it as a sign of weakness, or that you might have a lack of faith. If or you're not strong, right? You think you're supposed to just kind of, this is the way it is, and you move on. Or we see some people who do that, but we don't see what they do behind closed doors. So we just assume that they've got it together, and they go, oh, they're doing pretty well. They're doing pretty well. They even said they're doing well. So, but grief is just something that's going to be very natural. It's a necessary thing for us to all go through. And so you just have to expect to go through it. It's just a natural part. And the way I always think of it is it's just a gift that we've been given. And it's so closely associated with love. In fact, there's a lot of things, fancy words, statements about that. But that's what grief is. It's love. And as long as you continue to love that person, which will be forever, you'll continue to grieve, which will be forever. Now, the intensity is what you're looking at. The intenseness of when we first lose somebody, for maybe a month, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, maybe even longer than that. But the intensity where you can't do anything, but you're almost paralyzed. And so you just kind of stay at this place, and you don't want this pain. And you think, I need to go do something, but you don't do something because you can't. And so at some point you start to break that and say, okay, I need to go grief. I need to get out with my friends. I need to talk to somebody about this. I need to do something different. And so then once you start making the effort to do that, then it gets lengthier, but at the same time, that's when we get real impatient with ourselves. So the grieving process, if you really do it intentionally, can last, a good year. And for some, it takes even longer for that. And I think a lot of times it lasts longer because they think they're supposed to not grieve anymore. And you'll always grieve. I still talk about my wife from 30 years ago. I still have photos of her. I still have a daughter who's now 33 years old. And so we still talk about her mother. And I miss her greatly. I don't stay up late and cry and those types of things like I did at the very beginning. But you start to work through it and become more familiar with her as you grieve. Because the one thing about grief, it's not really in one of the rules, is that once you lose someone, you're not supposed to get over them. You're supposed to continue to have that relationship with that person. It's a new relationship. And we can talk about that on another show. But one of the things that's very, very important to know about grief is that you'll always be grieving. The intensity will go down, but it takes a long time because your brain is trying to work through the new time and space with this person that you really lost, that you're very, very close to. And so that love always stays. Because it stays, your grief will always stay. So just not only expect to grieve, but expect to live a life of grief and learn how to live with that person in a new way, in a different way, which is another great news that we have from grief. All neuroscience stuff. It's pretty neat, and I'll share with you that. But right now, I just want to get through some of these, and so really, you just gotta expect it, and not to give yourself a hard time for being in the middle of or grieving. So that's important. Rule number 2. One of the things I think is real important is learning how the art of just being still, to slow down your mind. One thing you'll learn is that your mind could very well be your greatest enemy as you grieve. It just will not shut up. It's always telling you things that you should or shouldn't do. It's always so active, especially when you wake up especially when before you go to bed. It just won't turn off. But meditation or practicing ways to be still, to be silent, and doing some techniques on this where you can learn the art of just slowing your mind down and allowing thoughts to happen, but you don't react to them, you don't respond to them. And another thing about grief is that when we first get in it, we just react to what we feel. And so as you go through the process of grief, you learn how to become proactive in where you're trying to go next. And so right now, when you're being reactive, it's a good idea to learn how to practice some form of meditation or practice some kind of silence to slow your mind down. And we're going to do a meditation at the end of this. And so you can kind of see how it kind of works. I do a guy named Jeff Warren, and you can get this. It's on the Calm app, and he does one for beginners. And I've been doing this. I had a beginning group 4 years ago. We still meet every morning, and it's really not what happens during meditation. It's what it teaches you to do while you're going through life. So as soon as your mind starts getting out of control, you just kind of sit and do a little quick process of trying to slow your mind down. And so that's an important thing to do. So number two would be we have to learn how to be still. Have to learn how to slow down the mind. I think that's very, very important too. So that's one of the rules. Rule number three. This is an interesting one. It was Paul Harvey made a statement that said, "In times like these, it helps to recall that there have always been times like these." I think that's a really critical one. One thing I've noticed about grief is it always seemed like it was a personal attack on me, and that I have a very unique experience that nobody's ever had because the pain's so excruciating, right? But we were entering a place right now in our grief where billions and billions and billions of people have gone through. Everybody will go through it. There's no one is exempt from this. And so what really was something really eye-opening for me is I have this routine of going by the graveside and going I think once a week. I think I end up going just once a week. I just really try to stay away or not go as often as I could have. But my Monday was the day that I would go, and I would just stand on her grave, and I would just man, I would just cry so hard. And I look around and making sure no one's around, and sometimes there were, but I couldn't stop it. But that was where I just kind of emptied the bucket. And I remember just doing that every week, and sometimes more than that. But I remember that. And I remember one day, I've been doing that for it seemed like for months. And then one day I just looked up and I saw something I've never seen before. And I looked up and I saw all of these headstones. And I thought to myself, that's interesting. And I started thinking everybody that's buried here has had 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people that have gone through exactly what I'm going through right now. And you don't see them there. And so I was like, so I'm not the only one that's done this. And there was 40,000 people at the time buried in that cemetery. So you start doing the math on that. And I'm starting thinking, okay, where are they? And if they can get through this, well, I can get through it. And that was a game changer for me because it started taking a different mindset that, okay, and that's what Harvey was saying. Paul Harvey was said, in times like these, it helps to recall that there's always been times like these. It just feels personal. And you feel like you're the only one going through it, and we're not. This is a process of life that we all go through. And so sometimes in the course of our grieving, we have to remember that this is what people go through. And what you're feeling and what you're experiencing is what billions upon billions and billions of people have gone through. There's no, we're not exempt from that. So you're just experiencing it today. And so sometimes that's important. Um, the fourth rule is about um, is a practice I've had to learn. And the practice goes like this: that every day you need to laugh a little and cry a lot. Okay. At the beginning part of your grief, you need to laugh a little, find times you can laugh, but you also need to cry a lot. And I say that because I feel like our tears are, our whole body's like a reservoir, and it just fills up with this tears and water and water and water. And then it has to come out. It has to come out. There's no way it can't. And so it's just like opening the dam and it just pours out. And that was my Monday for me. That's what I would do. Just pour it out. And when you're finished, you go, I feel better. Maybe I'm getting better. Right. And so, but as you heal, what you will start to notice is that you will cry a little bit, but you'll laugh a lot more. And I want you to pay attention to those percentages. And sometimes you'll say, I cried yesterday or last week, I think about 8 times a day. This week it's only like six days this week. I'm getting better. And so you want to just pay attention to those percentages. And then whenever time you see that you have these little victories, you just pat yourself on the back. You got to give yourself some kudos of saying, hey, I'm getting better. Good job, Danny. I can do this. I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And so what you just kind of pay attention to how often you laugh and how often you cry. I think that's kind of important gauge for us as well. But that's rule number 4. This is probably one of the keys for grieving is number 5. I have like 3 keys I think are real important for grieving, and this is one of them. And this is important. And number 5, see, it says, talk about your loved one. Talk about your loved one. Talk about your loved one. Have I said talk about your loved one yet? Because one of the things you have to do is you have to get that story off of you. And sometimes it hurts so much that we keep the story in. And then our story starts to tell us what we can't and can't do. It hurts too much to think about it, so I'm going to keep away from people. When I tell the story and people don't want to hear it, they kind of pull away from me, so I start to get away. I start to isolate myself, or I want to stay in bed longer. And so it tells us what we're going to do, and we don't want that. We want this story to end up being our story of love, our story of accomplishment, our story that we can share with people who will be going through what you are going through. And so the biggest thing to do is to talk about your loved one as much as possibly can. And people are going to grow tired of hearing them. But my thing is, who cares? Because you need to really think about your health and your well-being and your healing. And the only way we get to heal is if we talk about that story. And as it comes out of us a few times, it takes the sting. The sting is being taken away from your story. And so that's very, very important. And so tell the story. And well, it's also important that you know the people that you want to share your story with. And it's true. You just don't want to walk up to some folks and kind of start alienating it. You really got to start choosing and picking your friends. That's important too. And that's kind of rule number 7. I'll get back to that one. So anyway, what I want you to do is I want you to talk about your loved one. It can be around family stuff. It can be around your friends, but you got to find someone who really cares. And someone who's a very caring person, and say, or here's another great way to tell your story. It doesn't have to be to a person, but I would encourage you to find those people anyway. But what's important too is that you can tell your story every day by writing. And a lot of people journal, and you can journal things on how your day went. You could write letters to the one that you lost and tell them how your day went, or how much you miss them, or what you're feeling about them. You can write letters or even notes about what happened during the last day or two of your shared life together. But what you're doing is you're just getting the story off of you, but also you're helping your brain create a new story, and which is another important thing. Well, that's another video somewhere down the line. So you need to talk about your loved one, and that's critical. We'll move on to rule number 6. How's that? Is to be honest with yourself. A lot of times we we make the mistake when people say, "How you doing?" What do we generally say? Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. If you're not fine and you're not good, don't don't say that. You can come up with statements that aren't, pathetic. You can say things like, "It's a rough day today. I'm really missing Leslie, but I miss her every day and I'll get through it. Thank you for asking." That's all you got to do, because you're telling them that you're still in the process of healing, of grieving. And so they need to know that. If we say, "Oh, we're fine, everything's fine," then they're going to treat you like everything's fine. And then just kind of move on, do their own thing and not pay attention to you much. But if they hear that, "Man, I'm not having a good day today," you're going to get a little bit of sympathy and maybe even ask a few more questions and get your story out of you again. But you got to be able to just be honest with yourself. You got to give yourself permission as well to have a bad day. There'll be some moments where you're just climbing a ladder and thinking, "Oh my gosh, I'm doing so well. I'm doing so well. I'm doing so well." And then you just like you fall off a cliff. And then you start beating yourself up and going, why am I regressing? Why am I going backward? Why am I doing blah, blah, blah? And so we end up beating ourselves up. But you have to give yourself permission to have those bad days. They're going to come. You can't keep going up the mountain the whole time and just thinking, "I'm going to be at the top," and just beat my chest and say, "Man, I've done this." There's days you're going to fall off that cliff and you're going to have a bad day. And when that happens, when you do have a bad day, I always tell people, pay attention to that. Stay in bed if you need to. Take a day, eat ice cream all day. Take a day, cry all you want. Take a day, watch Netflix till the cows come home. But have a bad day. And the thing is, the key to this is don't allow yourself to have a series of bad days in a row. That's when things start formulating some bad habits, and we start getting pretty pathetic on that. But what we need to do is just keep moving. I got a bad day. I'm having a bad day. I'm going to name it. This is a bad day, and I don't want to do anything today, so I'm not going to do anything today. And so that's fine. Let's take that. But if you have 2 days like that, and what I tell people too is that when you do have you have bad days, a lot of times they just shake it off and say, "All right, next day is fine." You're back on the upper part of the ladder. But there's a lot of days that you don't. That's when you need to find somebody, a friend or family person, to tell your story, or a counselor or a grief coach to tell your story and get all those thoughts, those feelings out of you. To open up that reservoir, let those tears out. You've got to find that. You don't want to get stuck in this pit of grief. You want to continue to get through that. Recognize that when I do have a bad day, that I can get through it. Sometimes it's just the way the day goes, but you don't want to stay down. You want to get that story out of you. So that's why it's important to tell your story and know the right people. Tell your story. It is okay. Call up a friend or family member. Go, "Hey, can we get together tonight? I just need to be with you. I got to tell my story. I got to get this off of me. I'm having a bad day." "Okay, come on over." You see, reaching out is going to be also very critical to what you're doing. So be honest with yourself and give yourself permission to have a bad day. Those will happen. And don't kick yourself in the backside. Just go with it and say, "Oh, bad day today. I don't feel I'm grumpy. I don't want to talk to anybody." Don't do it. Don't do it. And then that's number 7. The rule is you got to know who your friends are, and you need to lean on them. Reaching out is so incredibly important. And you'll find that the people that you're friends with before will change. Your whole circle of friends may change. They don't understand what you're going through, and some of them don't want to know the pain you're going through. They just want the old person back. And so they'll be very impatient with you. And it's when you start hearing things like, well, you just need to get over him or her. You just need to move on, or this is God's will, and all these things they're trying to do is help you, but they don't realize, that's not helping. It's hurting. And so those are things that are very important. And so knowing who your friends are, because here's another thing I think is very important. As you go through this part of grief, as you do some very intentional grieving, you are now moving into a deeper part of life where things you see on the end of this grief you've never seen before. And all that stuff that you thought was important, you'll find out that's not important to me anymore. And so you're going into a deeper level of life, which is richer, more fuller, more appreciative, and you might even be more daring than you've ever thought before. And that there's good reason for that. You've lost something, and you'll overcome it, and you're not putting up with jackwagon people anymore. What you're doing is you want to keep continuing and growing and developing as you go through this. And as you do this intentionally, your circle of friends are going to change. And so as you go through this, that's why if you're leaning on a lot of your friends and they hear your story or they've experienced loss themselves, that's going to be very important too. So your friends are the ones that you need to just kind of rely on. And you may have like 15 friends, but when something like this happens, you might end up with 3 or 4. But really, really take them up on it as much as you can. If they call and give an invitation, come over to the house, let's go out to dinner, let's go see a movie, let's go do it. Even if you're not really feeling up to it, I think sometimes you get into it and then it's like, okay, I'm glad I went. I really didn't want to go. I was kind of having a bad day, but thank you for pulling me out of the bad day and making my day good again. And so sometimes you just got to take them up on an invitation to go and do something and be very appreciative of that. And so, and then when you do go out with them, talk about your loved one. Talk about your loved one, and then talk about your loved one. It puts everything in your back into perspective. And so that's one of the important things to do as well. Know who your friends are, and then lean on them. Don't isolate. Isolation is good for maybe once or twice every now and then, but it sets you back. It'll extend your grieving time, because grief isn't meant to be done alone. I think that's important. All right, that was number 7. All right, rule number 8. Let's see. This is important as you get further down the line in grieving. Okay, that one of the greatest healers in life is when we serve others in our times of need. And so giving ourselves away actually boosts the spirit within us, and it puts life into perspective again. And one of the things that you can do is, as you go through the grieving process, is to be there for someone else who's going through the grieving process, and you cry together. It's okay. So you try to do that. But sometimes if we just stay isolated and looking inward all the time, we're just going to feel lost. We're going to feel like we're dragging, we're not doing anything, we're stuck. But when we start to see the needs of other people that we can help in, and then you go and reach out to people, you see that your life isn't as messed up as you thought it was. And it actually gives you a boost in your spirit. And I think that's kind of how we're made. We're made to move forward, not to shrink back. And I think we're also made to give ourselves away to people that helps the people. And that builds that momentum within us. That gives us a lot of great energy. So one of the greatest healers in life is when we serve others in their time of need and have that communications with them. So think about that as you're going through the process of grieving. If you still got some energy, go find somewhere to go Go to a hospice and say, hey, I'd like to volunteer, do some things. And here's some things I like to do. Here's some things I can do. I'm always looking for mentors to help people who are going through grief, who really are lost, and being able just to sit with them and talk with them is very important. So yeah, that's a good one, is to give yourself away. Number nine, rule number nine. This is, well, I guess they're all important, but this is also really critical. You have to heal at your own pace. Okay. Everybody grieves differently. There's a lot of reasons we grieve differently. And some of it is because a lot of our makeup that we have within us, some of those issues that we carry with us. Another one is because of the relationship that we had with the one that we lost. And then how often we saw them, and how little, or, and where we saw them, and how we relate to them. So there's a lot of different factors on how we grieve at a much different pace. I have a lot, I'm not going into that one, but that's an important thing to do. And you need to heal at your own pace, and not at the pace that others expect you to heal. Golly, you'll know what I mean if you haven't heard those statements already. Well, you need to just get over that, or you still doing this and that. So you'll hear that, and don't feel like you're doing something wrong. It's usually from people who haven't been through what you are going through. So take it with a grain of salt. Don't be negative about it. Just let them say or do what they need to say. Try not to be offended, but also realize you have to grieve at your pace, nobody else's. This is your grief. It's your healing, and you're trying to do the best you can with the situation that you're in. So heal at your own pace, not what other people are telling you to do. And so anyway, yeah, I'll go another way on that one. Anyway, number 10. I'm biting my tongue on some of these. Number 10. Most importantly, I think this is important too, right? Keep doing what you and your family did that made you the person and the family that you are today. So if you have lost a spouse, if you have lost a parent, continue to do the things that you always did, even with that person no longer there. But keep doing that. It'll be tough, like if y'all always went to church, and I've had people not go to church anymore because they lost their spouse. And they said, well, that's just something we always did together. Well, yeah, it was very important to you to be there. You need to get back in there. It's going to be hard because that's just the way we're wired to always have a memory of that time and space with that person there. And by not going, you're allowing your story to tell you what you're going to do. I can't go there. I can't go to our favorite restaurant. I can't go to watch this area. I can't go to that bedroom. I can't go to that back room. I can't go to the house. I want to move. I'm going to do all that stuff. What you're trying to do is heal. And part of the healing process is to do some things and go to same places and allow yourself to just deal with it. You don't want to do it right off the bat. You want to do this down the road, but you want to do what you always did that made you the family or the person that you are today. So you just have to keep engaged with the people who molded you, who shaped you, who inspired you, who strengthened you, all those places, who are part of your soul. And so you got to learn how to keep them close and lean on them when you need them. And so that's important. Don't allow your experience or your story to tell you what you cannot do. If this is important to your growth and as a person, then you have to continue to do it. And one of the things I teach probably about 4 or 5 months down the road with people who are grieving is that sometimes one of the things I like to have them do is that let's do a memory tour or a reliving tour, where you would actually go to places that you used to go and do nothing but just remember the things that you did there. The reliving tour was kind of interesting. There's a park that RC and I would go to. She was the lady that died in a helicopter crash, girlfriend slash fiance. And there's a park we used to go to. We watched movies at this park downtown, and so I did this little reliving tour, and I just stood there on the balcony, and I just could see us go into the park and sitting down, spreading the blanket, pulling out all this food, leaning on each other, watching this big movie on the screen in the middle of the park, and just thinking through, just reliving that whole moment all over again. And sure, I was crying, but that's okay. But next time I walk by that park, it didn't have that effect on me anymore. And so a lot of times when the first time that you do something on your own without that person, it's always the toughest thing to do. But you have to keep doing it because it's helping your brain remap. It's helping it. It's doing a lot of work for you to move forward. And so there's a lot of neuroscience too. I want to talk about. Maybe we'll capture that one next time. There's also 3 keys I think that are really important to grieving. We can capture that as well. So there's a lot of neat stuff that we can share together. To end up for today, I want to go ahead and look at one of the rule number 2 was learn the art of being still and slowing down your mind. And I'm going to do this little meditation. I'll end up doing the meditation here on this. And so we'll go ahead and do that. And so for your meditation, it's just important you just sitting is better than laying down because it's meditation and not nap time. And I can't trust myself. So I sit in a chair, try to keep my back straight and just listen to what's being said. So just find a comfortable place where you can do that. And I'll see if I can, I'll get the app going. And we'll go from there. All right. Here we go. I think I'll cut off my screen maybe. Dun, dun, dun. Nope. All right, here we go. Get comfortable. That's an order.
Day 2, home base. Hi, this is Jeff. Welcome to day 2 of How to Meditate. Although meditation helps us relax, it's also a kind of exercise for the mind. It builds up very specific mental muscles. And one of these is concentration. Concentration is the ability to choose what we want to pay attention to. The big idea here is we don't have to let our minds be unconsciously hijacked by just whatever comes along. If things are hard, we don't need to wait for outside circumstances to change. We can change our inside circumstances immediately by paying attention to a different part of our experience. This is a huge insight. In meditation, we do this using something called a home base. A home base is just some really simple sensation that you focus on. It could be the breath, or it can be sounds, or it might be some point in the body. The idea is to hold your attention here. When your mind wanders, which is normal, you come back. And every time you come back, concentration muscle gets stronger. It's like a bench press for the mind. Eventually, our mind gets stronger and more settled. In a way, you can think of our home base as a portable reset button we learn to take with us anywhere we go. Bob Marley said it perfectly. My home is in my head. So let's explore. Okay, so find a comfortable position. Eyes open or closed, whatever feels right for you. If your eyes are open, keep the gaze soft, looking at the ground in front of you. We can start here with a few deep breaths. So on the inhale, you're stretching up your spine. And then on the exhale, that's the downward motion. So you're relaxing your face, relaxing your shoulders. Each exhale, it's like you're breathing out any tension. So let's set our meditative attitude here. Easygoing, not uptight about things needing to be perfect. Remember, this is really the ground of meditation, this attitude. So if surrounding sounds are there, the body is a bit uncomfortable, distractions happen, no problem. You're letting all the imperfections of life be there. So let's choose a home base, some point or sensation to pay attention to, and then come back to when we get distracted. A home base can be pretty much anything. A lot of people really like using the breath as their home base. So we'll start here. For the next little while, try to notice the soft feeling of the breath at the nostrils, or maybe down in the throat, or even at the belly. See how you enjoy it. Try this. Good. As you're doing this, see how into the feeling of breathing you can get. So you're practicing enjoying the breath too here, appreciating the simplicity of not having to do anything else, just being with your body breathing. When your mind wanders, you gently come back. And remember that wandering and coming back is what meditation's all about. Every time we do this, we build up our muscle of being able to pay attention to what we want in life. Okay, good. So if for whatever reason you prefer not to work with the breath, that's totally fine. We can always choose a different home base. Maybe the feeling of warmth in the hands, or a point in the belly, or even sounds in the space around you, like the background sound of a vent or a fridge. If you like, choose one of these other options and then see how into it you can get, into the listening, into the feeling. Good. So we're just sitting in this easygoing way, and we're noticing our breath, or maybe we're noticing some point in the body, or maybe sounds. And you're just seeing if you can get kind of into it. And the mind wanders, you come on back. Nice. So for the last little bit here, you can stop paying attention to your home base and just completely drift. Meditation teaches us how to pay attention. What do you want to fill your attention with in life? You can fill it with something stressful, or you can fill it with something peaceful. You have the ability, the power to choose. Nothing is more important than that, more important than our fundamental ability to pay attention. What you pay attention to becomes your life. When you're ready, open your eyes. So if you like a particular meditation in this course, you can save it to your favorites by tapping the heart icon on your screen. Come back to it anytime.
Okay, there you have it. What we're really trying to do here is create a real safe community. So getting many people on as we need to hear people's stories, to share stories, to learn a lot about grief. Also a great place for you to ask questions. And if you ask questions here and I can't have time to address them there, I can always do videos, or we can do a whole session answering that question. We've been meeting right now on the 2nd and 4th Monday nights at 7 o'clock, and I hope you Central Time. So I hope you can make that time. We can create a really nice community for all of us to share our grief with each other. But that's about it. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Murph. Ciao.